The celestial forum hummed with the low-frequency chatter of a dozen species, its crystalline spires catching the light of distant stars. Holographic displays flickered between debates, projecting alien scripts that twisted and reformed like living things. Ambassador Elias Vance adjusted his collar as he stepped onto the speaking platform, his polished shoes clicking against the iridescent floor. Around him, delegates lounged in their gravity, adjusted thrones, some floating, some coiled, some perched on too many limbs. High Speaker Vexler of the Zeperian Dominion uncoiled from his seat, his scaled body glinting under the station's artificial light, slit-pupilled eyes locked onto Vance. The Federation has tolerated humanity's presence long enough, he hissed, his voice dripping with condescension. Your species remains stagnant combustion engines, fission reactors, pathetic. A ripple of agreement spread through the chamber. The Vorak delegate, Myrissa, pulsed gently in her containment sphere, her jellyfish-like form shimmering with faint bioluminescence. We do not wish to be cruel, she murmured, her telepathic voice echoing in every mind present. But the facts are undeniable. Earth has contributed nothing of value to the Federation in 3 centuries of membership. Vance's jaw tightened. He had known this was coming. The whispers, the sidelong glances, the way his requests for technology transfers were always under review. He tapped the console before him, pulling up Earth's defense records, what little the Federation had allowed them to share. We've met every quota, he said, keeping his voice steady. Every trade agreement. Every quotas. Vexlor interrupted, his tail lashing. You think this is about quotas? He gestured to the holographic projection of Earth, spinning lazily above them. Your world is a relic. Your ships are museum pieces. The galaxy has moved on. Human, it's time you accepted your place. A murmur of approval rose from the assembled delegates. The insectoid cricks clicked their mandibles in agreement. The gaseous entity known as Counselor Enthal vibrated with amusement. Only the massive stone like Grolth remained silent, their obsidian eyes unreadable. Vance exhaled slowly. And what, exactly, is our place? Vexler's lips peeled back in something too sharp to be a smile. Primitive protectorate status. The Federation will assume direct governance of Earth. For your own good, of course. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Myrissa drifted closer, her tendrils rippling with what might have been sympathy. This doesn't have to be a punishment, Ambassador. Think of it as guidance. Your species will be cared for, sheltered. Vance's fingers curled into fists, sheltered like pets. Vexler's laugh was a dry, rattling sound. If you insist on the comparison. The vote was called. Holographic sigils flared to life above each delegate's station, green for approval, red for denial. One by one, they lit up, green, green. Vance didn't need to wait for the final tally. He knew what was coming. The Grolth delegate was the last to vote. For a moment, their massive form remained still. Then, with a grinding sound like tectonic plates shifting, they raised a single, stony hand. Green. It is decided, Vexlor announced, satisfaction oozing from every syllable. Earth is hereby classified as a primitive protectorate. Federation oversight begins immediately. The chamber erupted into polite applause. Delegates exchanged congratulatory gestures, tentacle clasps, wing flutters, chemical pheromone releases. Vance stood motionless, his face unreadable. Myrissa pulsed gently beside him. You must understand, Ambassador. This is for the best. Your people will be safe now. Vance turned to her, his voice low. You don't know what you've just done. Vexlor scoffed. Spare us the theatrics. What can your species possibly do? Your greatest warship is a half-decommissioned relic. Your weapons are outdated by 1,000 years. Vance didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket and withdrew a small metallic device. The delegates tensed. Was it a weapon? But he merely placed it on the speaking platform. A hologram flickered to life. It showed Earth, but not the Earth they knew. Cities glowed with impossible energy. Shipyards stretched across entire continents. And in orbit, hidden by some unknown technology, thousands of vessels hung silent and dark. Vexler's scales flattened in shock. This is a fabrication. Vance's smile was thin. Is it? The hologram zoomed in on one ship, a dreadnought, its hull scarred but unmistakably powerful, the USN Defiance. You called us primitive, Vance said softly. We let you. Then he turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving silence in his wake. The lunar shipyards hung in silence, a graveyard of forgotten steel. The USN Defiance floated among the skeletal remains of decommissioned cruisers, its hull pockmarked by centuries of micro-impacts. To any passing scout, it was just another relic. Power cores, cold weapon ports sealed. A sleeping giant wrapped in chains of bureaucratic red tape. Captain Ryan Blake's boots clanged against the Defiance's deck as he strode through its shadowed corridors. His cybernetic left arm whirred softly, the red glow of its joints cutting through the gloom. The ship smelled of ozone and old sweat, the scent of a warrior put out to pasture. Status report, Blake barked. His voice echoed down the empty hallway. Lieutenant Kara Voss materialized from the darkness, her tactical pad casting a pale blue light across her sharp features. All systems nominal, Captain, or at least as nominal as a museum piece can be. She smirked, but her eyes were hard. They'd served together too long for false bravado. Blake grunted, running his flesh and blood hand along a bulkhead. The metal was cold. They really did a number on her. Scavengers, Voss muttered. Took the fusion cores, stripped the railguns, left us with enough life support to keep the rats company. A chime cut through the silence. Blake's wrist terminal flickered to life, its display casting jagged shadows across his stubble. A single line of text pulsed in the darkness, Guardian protocol active. Voss sucked in a breath. That's not possible. Blake's lips curled into something too sharp to be a smile. Tell that to the old ghosts. Deep within the Defiance's belly, something stirred. The ship shuddered, a low resonant hum built in the walls, rising from a whisper to a growl. Emergency lights flared to life, bathing the corridors in crimson. Klaxons wailed, then cut off abruptly as if silenced by an unseen hand. Engineering to bridge. Chief Engineer Rook's voice crackled over the comm, half panicked, half awed. Captain, you need to see this. Blake and Voss exchanged a glance before sprinting toward the heart of the ship. The engine room was alive. Where there had been dormant reactors, now a web of energy pulsed through crystalline conduits, their glow shifting from blue to violet. Rook stood in the center of the chaos, his coveralls streaked with grease, his face lit by the unnatural light. Shiz, waking up, he breathed. Blake stepped forward, his reflection fracturing in the polished surface of a newly revealed control panel. His fingers hovered over the interface. This wasn't here before. None of this was, Rook said. The schematics lied. The whole damn ship lied. A hologram flickered above the console, a star map of the Sol system. Red icons pulsed near Mars. Voss cursed. Vorak signatures, a lot of them. Blake's jaw tightened. How long? 3 hours, maybe less. Voss' fingers danced across her pad. They're moving fast. If they're here for the occupation, then they're in for a surprise. Blake pressed his palm against the console. The ship recognized him. Panels slid open along the Defiance's spine, revealing rows of sleek, angular barrels, quantum, lance batteries, their surfaces etched with markings older than the Federation itself. Rook let out a shaky laugh. Well, that explains where the defense budget went. Outside, unnoticed by the waking Leviathan, a Vorak spy satellite adjusted its orbit. Its sensors registered the power surge, the heat bloom, where there should have been none. A burst transmission streaked toward the approaching fleet, human vessel activated. Unknown weapons signature, the reply came seconds later, laced with static and disdain. Impossible, proceed with purification. On the bridge, Blake settled into the command chair. The Defiance's systems sang to him, a chorus of dormant fury finally unleashed. "All hands," he said, his voice cutting through the ship like a blade. "Battle stations." Somewhere in the dark, Earth's guardians opened their eyes. The Vorak purification fleet emerged from warp space in perfect formation, their obsidian hulls glinting like a swarm of knives in the sunlight. 217 warships, each bearing the sigil of the Vorak ascendancy, a crimson claw dripping with liquid metal. Admiral Kesh watched from the bridge of the Claw of Supremacy, his four eyes narrowing as Earth's blue sphere filled the view screen. "Pathetic," he hissed, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "They still use orbital satellites, primitive." On the surface of Mars, hidden beneath the red dust, a lone technician in a buried bunker wiped sweat from his brow. His screen flickered with the incoming fleet signatures. He tapped his earpiece. "Captain Blake, they're here." Aboard the USN Defiance, Ryan Blake cracked his knuckles. His cybernetic arm whirred as he gripped the command chair. "All stations, report. Gravity. Implosion mines armed, Captain," said Lieutenant Chen, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Quantum Lance batteries at 90%. Engines primed and ready," growled Chief Engineer O'Reilly, his scarred face split in a grin. "Those bastards won't know what hit 'em." Blake leaned forward. The Vorak fleet was moving into position, their formation tight, arrogant. They hadn't even bothered to scan the lunar shipyards. Why would they? To them, the Defiance was a relic, a hollow husk of a bygone era. "Helm," Blake said, his voice a blade of ice. "Take us out, full burn." The Defiance's engines roared to life, the vibrations shaking the deck plates. Across the ship, crewmen braced themselves as the dreadnought lurched forward, not away from the Vorak, but straight at them. On the Claw of Supremacy, alarms blared. "Admiral," shouted a sensor officer, his frills flaring in panic. "The human vessel, it's moving," Kes snorted. "Running, no doubt track its trajectory. I want it disabled, not destroyed. Their leaders will watch as we, sir. It's not retreating. It's..." The officer's voice cracked. "It's charging us?" Kesh's amusement vanished. He spun to the view screen just in time to see the Defiance's hull plates slide apart, revealing rows of glowing emitters. The weapons hummed, space itself distorting around them. "Evasive maneuvers," Kesh barked too late. The Defiance fired, not lasers, not missiles, quantum, lances, beams of pure, twisted space-time, ripped through the void. A Vorak frigate caught in the path simply unraveled, its atoms scattering like dust in a hurricane. "Return fire!" Kesh screamed. The Vorak fleet unleashed a storm of plasma. The Defiance's shields flared, buckling under the assault, but not breaking. Not yet. Blake gritted his teeth as the ship shuddered. "Mines ready, armed and deployed," Chen confirmed. "Detonate." Space around the Defiance shimmered, then collapsed. Gravity. Implosion mines weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They didn't explode outward. They sucked inward. A dozen miniature black holes bloomed amidst the Vorak formation, swallowing ships whole. The Claw of Supremacy lurched violently, its hull groaning as the artificial singularities tore at its structure. Kesh clung to his console, his carapace cracking under the strain. What in the abyss are they using? On the Defiance, O'Reilly whooped. "That's for calling us primitive, you overgrown roaches." Blake didn't celebrate. Not yet. He watched as the Claw struggled to break free, its engines flaring. Finish it. The Defiance's lances fired again. This time, they struck the Claw's primary reactor. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the Vorak flagship detonated in a silent, brilliant flash. Debris spiraled outward, some of it caught in Jupiter's gravity, well destined to burn in the gas giant storms. The rest of the purification fleet scattered, their formation broken, their admiral dead. On the bridge of the Defiance, Blake exhaled. Status. Vorak fleet in disarray, Chen reported. Remaining ships are retreating to warp. Blake allowed himself a small, cold smile. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Guardians are awake. Across the solar system, hidden shipyards powered up. Dormant satellites unfolded like steel flowers, and in the dark between the stars, something ancient stirred. The galaxy had made a mistake. It had underestimated humanity. The Defiance didn't run. It charged. Alarms blared across the bridge as the Vorak fleet registered the movement. Admiral Kesh's holographic face flickered onto the main screen, his chitinous plates flexing in amusement. Human vessel, his translated voice crackled. You are outnumbered 400 to 1. This is not bravery, it is suicide. Captain Blake's cybernetic fingers tightened around the armrest of his command chair. Suicide would imply we plan to die. He turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Chen, activate the gift we left near Jupiter. A Vorak tactical officer aboard the Claw of Supremacy suddenly stiffened, his antennae twitching. Admiral, gravimetric anomaly directly between us and the human ship. Kesh's mandibles clicked. Evasive, too late. Space rippled. The gravity. Implosion mines, buried in the debris field of a derelict human freighter weeks earlier, detonated in perfect sync. The fabric of reality twisted. For 3 terrifying seconds, the Claw's bow stretched like taffy, its armored plates screeching as they compacted inward. Then the universe snapped back. The flagship's forward third simply vanished. The remaining hull spun wildly, atmosphere venting in frozen geysers. Kesh final transmission cut mid-sentence. Their ship, it shouldn't. Blake didn't smile. Helm full burn ram what's left. The Defiance's engines roared, ancient, yes, but Earth's engineers had spent 50 years tweaking them in secret. The dreadnought accelerated faster than any Federation model could manage, its reinforced prow glowing white-hot. On the Claw's shattered bridge, a Vorak navigator screamed. Impact in 10. The collision sent shockwaves through both vessels. The Defiance's nose crumpled, but not before shearing through the Claw's spine. Atmosphere exploded outward, carrying with it the flailing forms of Vorak crewmen. Damage report, Blake barked. Forward armor at bay but holding, Chen shouted. Their fleet's breaking formation, their scrambling fighters, a swarm of needle-thin Vorak interceptors launched, their plasma cannons charging. Blake watched them come, activate point, defense grid, and prep the lances. Aboard the Federation observation satellite near IO2, Zephyrian analysts gaped at their screens. That's impossible, the younger hissed. Primitive species don't have grav weapons. His superior scales flushed crimson. They shouldn't have shields either. But look. The Defiance's hull shimmered as the first plasma volleys struck. Instead of burning through, the energy dispersed across a honeycomb pattern of light. Human shield tech, outdated by galactic standards, yet somehow holding Blake's comms officer suddenly stiffened. Captain, incoming transmission from the Atlantica. They've cleared the lunar yards. A new signature blipped onto the tactical display. Then another and another. 7 human warships, their profiles identical to the Defiance, emerged from behind the moon. The lead vessel's captain, a woman with a scar across her dark brow, appeared on screen. Sorry we're late. Ryan had to wake the neighbors. Blake finally grinned. Just in time, Naomi. The Vorak were about to leave. Across the solar system, Federation sensors lit up. The Vorak fleet commander, now frantically reorganizing his lines, barked orders to retreat. Too late, the Atlantica's quantum lances fired first. Twin beams of blue, white energy lanced out, punching clean through a Vorak cruiser's midsection. The ship detonated in a silent fireball. Then the Vanguard joined, then the Titan. Within minutes, the Purification fleet became the hunted. Vorak ships burned, escape pods jettisoned by the hundreds. The Defiance, despite her wounds, carved through the chaos like a blade. On the Celestial Forum, High Speaker Vexlor watched the feed in horror. This cannot be. Their technology was catalogued. Their capabilities documented. Ambassador Vance, still standing at the council podium, adjusted his tie. You catalogued what we let you see. He nodded to the screen, where the last Vorak command ship tumbled toward Jupiter's storms. Now you see what happens when humanity stops being polite. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted. Security teams scrambled. Only Myrissa remained still, her gelatinous form pulsing with sudden, terrible understanding. She reached for the archives and began to dig. The celestial forum erupted into chaos. Holographic displays flickered wildly as the last transmission from the Vorak flagship played on loop. Admiral Kesh's final, static-choked words cutting off as the claw of supremacy vanished from sensors. Delegates from a dozen species scrambled over each other, appendages flailing, voices raised in a cacophony of panic. High Speaker Vexlor slammed his scaled fist onto the crystalline podium, the impact echoing through the chamber. Silence. His slit, pupilled eyes burned with fury as he rounded on Ambassador Vance. This is an act of war. Your primitive species will burn for this. Elias Vance didn't flinch. The old human stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable. You sent a fleet to occupy our home, he said, voice calm. We defended it. A chorus of angry clicks and hisses rose from the Zeperian delegation. Myrissa, the Vorak delegate, pulsed with bioluminescent distress, her gelatinous form quivering. You don't understand what you've done, she whispered, her telepathic voice trembling. The Vorak will not stop until Earth is glass. Vance's lips twitched. Let them try. The chamber's main holoscreen flickered again, this time displaying a tactical overlay of the Sol system. The remnants of the Vorak fleet were scattering, but new signatures flared to life near Pluto, massive energy spikes, unmistakable. What is this? Vexler snarled, his tail lashing. A junior aide, a Cerellian with orb, like eyes, stammered. Sensors detect 9 additional human vessels. Energy profiles match the defiance. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Delegate Myrissa pulsed again, her telepathy reaching out to the room. They were supposed to be decommissioned. Vance adjusted his cufflinks. Funny thing about decommissioning, he said. Sometimes it just means waiting. The holoscreen zoomed in, revealing the sleek, angular forms of the USN Atlantica and USN Vanguard, their hulls gleaming under the distant sun. Weapons ports slid open, not the crude ballistic cannons the Federation expected, but sleek predatory arrays of quantum, lance projectors. Vexler's scales darkened with rage. You've been hiding technology violating galactic arms accords. Vance chuckled. We didn't hide anything, you just never asked the right questions. A new alert blared across the forum systems. The Atlantica had locked onto a Zeperian observation post near Neptune. Recall your ships, Vexlor demanded, or we will reduce your world to ash. Vance tilted his head. You're welcome to try. He tapped his wristcom, and a new transmission played across every screen in the chamber. A live feed from Earth's orbit, dormant satellites, long dismissed as obsolete, unfolded like metallic flowers. Panels slid back, revealing the sleek barrels of plasma fortress platforms. Their cores hummed to life, casting an eerie blue glow across the planets. Nightside, the forum fell silent. Myrissa's bioluminescence flickered in realization. They were never defenseless. Vance stepped forward, his voice carrying across the stunned assembly. For 200 years, the Federation treated us like children. You patronized us, dismissed us, called us primitive. His eyes hardened. But you never wondered why we let you. The holoscreen split, one side showing the Defiance's triumphant return to Earth, the other displaying a data stream from the Federation's deepest archives. Myrissa's tendrils twitched as she accessed it, her telepathic gasp echoing through the chamber. This can't be. The records were fragmented, deliberately erased, but the remnants were clear. Star maps, battle logs, a sigil of an ancient empire. its language unmistakably human. Vexler's snarl died in his throat. "What is this?" Vance smiled. "History." The data stream ended on a single, chilling line. "Final directive. Stand down. Let them forget." Myrissa's voice was barely a whisper. "You didn't fall behind, you chose to." Outside the forum's observation deck, the stars seemed to shift. Sensors screamed as new contacts emerged from cloak. Thousands of them, their silhouettes sleek and deadly human ships. Vance turned to leave, pausing only to glance back at the stunned assembly. "Sleep well, delegates." The doors hissed shut behind him, leaving the galaxy's most powerful beings in silence. Somewhere in the dark, Earth's fleet waited. The celestial forum erupted into chaos. Holographic displays flickered wildly as sensor feeds from the Sol system poured in. Ambassador Elias Vance stood motionless at the human delegation's podium, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, alien delegates shouted over each other, their voices a cacophony of panic and disbelief. High Speaker Vexler's scales flushed crimson with rage as he slammed a clawed fist onto the crystalline console. "This is impossible." Those ships were decommissioned, scanned. Their weapons were disabled. Elias interrupted, his voice calm. "Or so you believed." A hush fell over the chamber as the main display zoomed in on Earth. The blue-green world seemed peaceful, until the orbital satellites began to move. On the bridge of the USN Defiance, Captain Ryan Blake watched the feed with a grim smile. "Activate the grid." Across Earth's orbit, dormant satellites shuddered. Their outer shells split apart, revealing sleek, angular constructs beneath. Panels slid open, exposing humming cores of raw energy. "What in the void are those?" Delegate Myrissa's telepathic voice trembled as she floated closer to the display. Elias didn't turn. "You called our weapons primitive, said we clung to outdated technology." He tapped a command into his wrist console. "You were right." The satellites reconfigured in unison, armor plating folded back, emitters extended. "We didn't need to advance," Elias said. "We just needed to wait." A Zephyrian battleship, the Talons of Justice, broke formation from the Federation's emergency response fleet. Its commander, a brash young warrior named Crixan, snarled over the open channel. "Pathetic human tricks. Those satellites are relics. My shields will..." The first satellite fired. A beam of pure plasma, hotter than a star's core, lanced across the void. It struck the Talons of Justice dead center. The battleship's shields flared for a millisecond, then vanished. The beam punched through the hull, exiting the other side in a burst of molten debris. Silence gripped the forum. Crixan's final transmission crackled through the speakers. "Impos." The Talons of Justice exploded in a silent fireball. Elias turned to face the stunned assembly. His voice carried the weight of centuries. The orbital defense grid was built to protect Earth from threats far greater than the Federation. We dismantled our empire. We hid our strength. Not because we were weak. Another satellite fired. Then another. Beams of light crisscrossed space, each one finding its mark. A Vorak cruiser disintegrated. A Zephyrian carrier split in half. Because we were patient. On the Defiance, Blake watched the carnage with cold satisfaction. His comm officer turned, eyes wide. "Captain, we're receiving a priority hail from the Celestial Forum. High Speaker Vexler is demanding an immediate ceasefire." Blake leaned back in his chair. "Tell him humanities. Terms are simple: full sovereignty, no protectorate status. And one more thing." The officer waited. Blake's grin was razor sharp. An apology. Back in the forum, Vexler's frills flattened against his skull. His claws dug into the podium as the holographic display showed another Zephyrian ship, vanishing in a flash of light. You planned this. You let us believe you were weak." Elias tilted his head. "Did we?" Myrissa's bioluminescent body pulsed with frantic colors. She accessed the Federation archives with a thought, her telepathy racing through millennia of records. Buried deep, behind layers of encryption, she found it, a single fragmented entry. Human dominion. Era, pre-Federation. Status, voluntary dissolution. Note, military capabilities archived, not abandoned. Her voice, when she spoke aloud, was barely a whisper. They didn't fall behind, they chose to stand down. Elias didn't deny it. He simply watched as the grid's satellites repositioned, their emitters glowing with restrained power. The remaining Federation ships had stopped advancing. Some were already retreating. Vexler's voice was hoarse. Why hide this? Elias finally smiled. It wasn't a kind expression, because the galaxy has a habit of underestimating us, and we've found it's better to let our enemies believe what they want. A new alert blared across the forum's systems. Sensors detected movement near Pluto, more human signatures, the USN Atlantica, the USN Vanguard, 7 others, all waking from their long slumber. Elias tapped his console again. The grid's satellites powered down, their emitters retracting, but they didn't close. Not fully. A show of good faith, he said. But make no mistake, Earth is under our protection now, not the Federation's. Vexler's claws twitched. For the first time in his life, the High Speaker had nothing to say. On the view screen, Earth hung serene against the black, peaceful, unbroken, and armed to the teeth. The celestial forum trembled with panic. Holographic displays flickered between battle reports and emergency alerts, casting jagged shadows across the scaled faces of the Zephyrian delegation. High Speaker Vexler's claws dug into his throne's armrests as he watched the feed from Earth, the human orbital platforms reducing his finest warships to molten slag. Marissa, he hissed. The Vorak delegate floated nearby, her gelatinous form pulsing with distress. Your intelligence reports said their technology was centuries behind ours. Marissa's bioluminescence dimmed. It should have been. Her tendrils trembled as she interfaced with the forum's archives. Unless, deep within the Federation's databanks, buried beneath layers of restricted access protocols, she found something that shouldn't exist. A classified file, older than the Federation itself. The access request triggered alarms across 3 star systems, but Marissa didn't care. Not when the hologram resolved into a star map, one that matched human territory exactly, but dated 12,000 years before the Federation's founding. What is this? Vexler snarled, leaning over her shoulder. The file header burned in ancient script, last testament of the Orion Accord. The recording that played next froze the blood in every non-human vein. A figure in ornate armor, their face obscured by a helmet styled like a wolf's maw, spoke in a language the universal translators struggled to pass, until the last sentence, "We stand down, but we will watch." The armor's insignia matched the crest now emblazoned on the hull of the Defiance. Marissa's voice shook. They didn't fall behind. They chose this. On screen, the human fleet moved with terrifying precision, not the reckless charges of an upstart species, but the practiced maneuvers of an empire that had waged war when the Zephyrians were still crawling from their primordial seas. Vexler's crest flattened against his skull. Impossible. The energy signatures alone match nothing in our databases, Marissa finished, because they predate them by millennia. A new alert blared. The Defiance had broken through the blockade around Jupiter, not with brute force, with mathematics. Their navigation computers solved gravity slingshots no Federation AI could calculate, threading the needle between moons with margins measured in centimeters. On Earth, Ambassador Vance's face appeared on every screen. His smile held the weight of epochs. "You asked why we never joined your wars," he said. "Why we lagged behind." The camera panned to show the lunar shipyards, now fully active, berthing ships whose designs made Vorak engineers whimper. "We've seen what happens to civilizations that chase power without wisdom." The forum's main display split. One side showed the human fleet. The other played archival footage, a star system dying in a storm of crimson energy. The same energy now crackling around Earth's defense platforms. Marissa recognized the weapon. The Federation had banned it after the Cretan genocide. No species had wielded it since, Until today, Vexlor's throat pulsed with suppressed terror. You kept the planet killers. Vance's eyes hardened. We kept everything. The truth unfolded like a nightmare. Human colonies revealed hidden shipyards. Their research stations deployed drone fleets. Even their agriculture satellites unfolded into railgun platforms. A junior Zephyrian aide vomited neon bile. They've been armed this whole time. Why let us think? Because we learned. Vance's gaze swept the forum. The strong prey on the weak, so we became the weakest. Watched you tear each other apart over resources we'd already mastered. Waited to see if you'd grow beyond it. The holograms changed again. Human explorers, standing on worlds the Federation had declared uninhabitable. Dated before the Accord. You called our engines primitive, Vance said. We called them silent. Marissa's tendrils recoiled as she accessed deeper files. The records were fragmented, but the pattern was clear. Human artifacts on a dozen newly discovered worlds, always placed where others would find them, after humanity had studied them first. A Vorak science officer screamed. Their first warp jump, a lie they've had fold space drives since your species discovered fire. Vance confirmed. The forum's gravity fluctuated as the Defiance entered orbit. Not with the clumsy thrusters of an inferior ship, but with the seamless grace of a predator returning to its den. Vexlor's voice cracked. What do you want? Vance tilted his head. Same as always, to guard. The screens showed Earth's fleet holding position, not advancing, not attacking, just waiting. Marissa understood first, not conquerors, shepherds. The oldest human record played one last line, the wolf-helmed warrior removing their mask to reveal a face identical to Vance's. When the galaxy is ready, we'll be here. Silence. Then the first human warship powered down its weapons. Vance spread his hands. Now you know. Question is, what will you do? The Zephyrian fleet's targeting systems still locked onto Earth. But no order came. High above, the Defiance's quantum, lances hummed to standby. Waiting, always waiting. The docking clamps of the Celestial Forum hissed as they locked onto the USN Defiance. The scars along its hull still glowed faintly from battle. The metal warped where Vorak plasma had struck and failed to penetrate. Captain Ryan Blake stood at the airlock, his cybernetic fingers flexing once before he keyed the release. The door slid open. Beyond it, the forum's grand concourse stretched, its crystal arches shimmering under artificial sunlight. But the usual hum of alien delegates was absent. Instead, a tense silence hung thick as the air itself. Blake stepped forward, boots ringing against the polished floor. Behind him, his crew followed, human faces set in grim lines, weapons holstered but hands resting near them. Ambassador Elias Vance waited at the base of the high speaker's dais, his silver hair catching the light. He didn't smile, but there was something in his stance. A quiet satisfaction. Took you long enough, he murmured as Blake reached him. Had to make an entrance, Blake replied. His voice carried, echoing in the vast chamber. Above them, the Federation delegates stirred. High Speaker Vexlor's scaled fingers dug into the arms of his throne, his slit pupilled eyes locked onto the humans. The Zephyrian's crest, usually flared in dominance, lay flat against his skull. You dare, he hissed, to bring weapons here. Blake didn't look up, didn't bring them. They were already here. A ripple of confusion passed through the assembled aliens. Then the forum's sensors blared, a proximity alert. The holographic displays flickered, shifting to show the space beyond the station. Space that was no longer empty one by one. Human ships decloaked, not just the Atlantica or the Vanguard, but hundreds, thousands of vessels. Dreadnoughts with quantum, lance batteries humming to life. Stealth frigates slipping between the shadows of larger ships. Carriers disgorging wings of fighters in perfect formation. The fleet stretched beyond the forum's sensors, a wall of steel and firepower that hadn't existed in any Federation record. Delegate Marissa's gelatinous form trembled, her telepathic voice a whisper in every mind present. They were never unarmed. Vance stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back. You voted to make Earth a protectorate, he said, calm as a still ocean. You called us primitive. You thought we'd kneel. His gaze swept the chamber, lingering on each alien face. But you never asked why we let you think that. A Vorak delegate lunged to its feet, tentacles flaring. This is an act of war. Blake chuckled. No war's what happens when you're unprepared. He tilted his head toward the displays. This is a reminder. Vexler's voice was hoarse. What are you? For the first time, Blake smiled. It wasn't friendly, guardians. The word hung in the air. Then the forum's comm systems crackled to life, 100 channels flooding with the same transmission, a single phrase repeated in every known language. Stand down. Not a request. A command. Myrissa's form pulsed with frantic energy as she accessed the Federation archives, her telepathy racing through millennia of data. Then she found it, buried, erased, but not gone. Records of a civilization that had spanned the stars before the first Superior city had risen. A civilization that had chosen to retreat, to fade into myth. Her voice, when it came, was hollow with realization. They were never behind us. They were waiting. Vance didn't deny it. He simply turned to Vexler. The vote's off the table, he said. Earth doesn't need your protection. But if you'd like to discuss an alliance, he gestured to the fleet beyond the viewports. We're willing to listen. Silence. Then one by one, the delegates began to speak. Not in defiance, in negotiation, Blake exhaled, rolling his shoulders. Told you they'd see reason. Vance shot him a look. You vaporized half the Vorak fleet. Yeah, Blake said. Reason looked real good after that. Outside, the human fleet held position, a silent promise written in steel and fire. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. It wouldn't make that mistake again.